Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to work through the existential crises brought on by our unfulfilled dreams in middle age with the 2017 film Mom and Dad. If you experience any level of catharsis through this process, you might consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get to it. We open on a sleepy suburban neighborhood, where we find Carly in her room engaged in conversation with Damon, a young man she's taken on as her lover, as is a young woman's prerogative. They're interrupted by her bratty younger brother Josh, which is fine because Damon is heading in to crush the PSAT. At breakfast, Carly tries to get pre-approval to see a movie that evening, but her request is denied because her grandparents are visiting for dinner. This deepens her resentments.
God, it's not my fault you have no life!
And she wallows in them as her mother, Kendall, drives her to school. While back at home, Brent engages in some classic roughhousing before Bald at the Head provides a moment of clarity, and we see the latent violence that boils beneath the surface. And then it's off to another day at work. At home, Sun is tenderizing some meat as her daughter Lisa looks on. Meanwhile, Josh has a flashback to that time he saved an unknown critter from a murder of crows, and tried to nurse it back to health inside his father's Trans Am, but it just made the car reek of decomp instead. He's snapped back to attention by a sound we can only interpret as the tenderizing of young Lisa's face, which is gonna be so good after marinating all day. After mommy yoga, Kendall and Jenna talk over coffee, commiserating over the cruelness of their daughter's perky youth. Meanwhile, in class, students are being called to the office left and right, resulting in a sudden and confusing end to the day. Similarly, at the PSATs, we see the parents champing at the bit to get their kids. Damon finishes early and begins biking home. At school, as the situation is being assessed, young Evan is the first to break ranks to get to mommy, who helps him over the fence and promptly kills him. The Rents then start rolling their old asses into the courtyard looking for their progeny while the police try to run interference and treat the parents like their kids. And he's been waiting to do this his whole life, Karen. Damon arrives home and finds his dad heavy into the drink, and what would otherwise be an unfortunate but semi-normal abuse situation escalates quickly and without prompting. Fortunately for his mental health, he only accidentally kills his dad. About this time, Kendall gets the call that her sister has gone into labor, so she heads to the hospital. Meanwhile, we see the girls have made it to Riley's house. They tune into reports of an unknown virus and cases of mass filicide spreading across the country, and Carly stays glued to the TV where, in a remarkably prescient moment, we find Dr. Oz on cable news spouting absolute nonsense.
In fact, around 50% of the piglet fatality seen is due to the mother attacking or crushing the newborn pre-weaned babies.
You dumb bitch. Carly's distracted from this by a strange noise and goes upstairs to see that Riley's found her mom. At the hospital, after Jeannie gives birth, a wave rolls through and she begins squeezing her new baby a bit too tight. Kendall's able to wrench it away, but it's confiscated for safety by the hospital staff. Security keeps a close watch as an audience of hungry dads leer over their offspring. Now, semi-aware of what's happening, Kendall tries to get home to make sure Josh is okay. Carly is also engaged in a journey home and runs across Damon along the way. This is where she first learns the danger is family specific, so they hurry home to try to get Josh to safety. Unfortunately, Brent comes home early, and at first they can't tell if he's homicidal or Nicolas Cage. As it turns out, it's a little of both. They rush to the basement to find the end result of a DIY project from a couple of weeks prior, eventually perfected but immediately an object of contention. Overwhelmed with a desire to destroy something beautiful, representing his youthful hopes and dreams, he and Kendall bond over the dissatisfaction wrought by their unrequited youthful expectations. And now they're tag teaming like true partners, playing good cop bad cop to try to lure their children to an early grave. When this fails, Kendall takes a more direct approach, but finds there's a learning curve involved in using the Sawzall. Brent rushes upstairs to retrieve another one of his secret obsessions, but finds he didn't hide it well enough. He hears two shots downstairs, discovering that Josh is taken to invading his privacy like a moth to a flame. The parents then discuss their differing opinions about the safety of having a gun in the house while dressing a bullet wound, which pretty much punctuates the argument. Then they rig up the oven's gas line with a garden hose and make a comfy little gas chamber for the kids. Once satisfied with the results, they relax and wait for signs of coughing. Carly MacGyver's a little trap at the doorway, and then they let off a few choking noises before tucking away into the furnace duct. Upon hearing sounds of distress, the parents begin their ingress, and Brent promptly blows his face off, leaving Kendall on her own to chase down the kids. She does fairly well until Damon, just now waking up, indicating significant brain trauma, tags in, and they manage to force Kendall into the closet. The kids then engage in a premature moment of levity, letting down their guard enough for Kendall to fishhook Damon in the cheek, and then he again takes the brunt of the punishment. Brent wakes up, and right as they get the kids cornered in the kitchen, the doorbell rings. The paternal grandparents have arrived for dinner, and Brent's ass is fully on the menu. Pop manages to stick him a few times with his service knife, while the lady brawl spills out into the front yard. Brent manages to end it with one move, and then Damon finally manages to dole out some head trauma drama of his own. The movie ends with Mom and Dad waking up bloody and bound to a post, and we're left without knowing if or when the terror will ever pass. And that was Mom and Dad, a tight little movie coming in with a runtime below 90 minutes, including credits, but it progresses in a logical fashion while packing in a good amount of tension and payoff. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.